Hi everyone, Lisa from Spellbound Miniatures here and welcome to our Mansard roof tutorial. If you've been following along with any of our tutorials by now, you'll know that we've developed a modular dollhouse system, and this Mansard roof bundle includes a roof for both the full width modules and the hallway module. It also works really well as a standalone room box, whether you want to do the full width or the hallway or both together like I have. I also did a little bit of Photoshop trickery to show you how it would look if you did two side by side. I've used the Witch's Cottage ground floor and first floor extensions here and just mirrored the image, but you get the picture. And I also did the same with the toy shop and hallway that I built and just mirrored that too. So you could make it kind of a double fronted villa effect if you wanted. So let's head over to Design Space and I'll talk you through the SVGs, or there'll be the DXFs if you're using those. You've downloaded and extracted all the components, as well as the Getting Started PDF file. You'll also see the SVG and DXF files. I use SVGs, and this little symbol next to it is because I open mine in Inkscape, but your system will be set to open SVGs in whatever software you use. But I would recommend that you open them one at a time into Design Space or your laser cutter software and only cut one file at a time, just so that you don't get overwhelmed. So the first file we'll look at is the Mansard roof, and that is the full width one. This will fit on top of the cottage, the room box, any of our basic width or standard width modules, and you'll see that it has the two arches opening for the French doors. And then for the side walls, which are the non-labelled pieces, you'll see you've got several options. You've got solid side walls, and you've also got two with openings for doors. The one the arrow is pointing at here is just the standard arched opening. That you won't put a doorway in that one, you can just walk through it. The second one is the squarer one, and that fits all of our period doors if you have the period door bundle. Or you could leave that open too, that's up to you. But you will need to cut two of these if you're joining two roof modules together. And then in that case, you would not cut one of the blank side walls. You just need the blank side wall or the filled in side wall for the outside wall and an archway side wall for an inner wall where you're joining another piece. The hallway file is very similar to the main file. It's just slightly narrower and has one archway and has the solid side walls. So you can always use the opening side walls from the main file if you want to create an opening wall for your hallway. And then there's the French door file, and you will cut most of these pieces in craft board. All the red pieces are in craft board. The blue there is for your acetate, your plexiglass, or I used OHP transparency paper in this project, and that worked really well too. As always, the most important thing with any of these files is to make sure that the green square measures an inch square, and to resize the file as a group. So don't unattach the group or even ungroup the group before you resize it, so that everything resizes together. Sometimes the softwares don't always import them in exactly as we exported them. So once you've resized and cut the file, let's now look at how we build it. So first of all, I'll show you the quick overview, and then we'll go on to the more detailed version. So you've got a floor which is square, these two sides, and then the back piece, and then the front. So these little yellow bits are going to resemble glue. So what you need to do is you've got your two sides, you'll put glue on the underneath edge, the bottom edge of each of the side pieces, and then you'll lay them on the floor. They sit on the floor, so they go on top of the floor at the side, and they line up with the back edge. So you'll do one piece, one side wall on one side, and then the other side wall will go on that side, lining them up with the back. The back then, you'll put glue again on the very underneath the bottom edge, And also you'll put glue on the sides. Let me just put some glue there on the outside edges of the back piece. So then the back piece will sit inside of the side pieces and onto the floor. So it will slide down in. So you'll have the side piece on either side and the back bit in the middle of those two. So that will then sit in there. I'll just make that a little shorter, the glue. And then the front piece, you can see here, that's the sort of, it falls short there for the balcony. The front piece sits on the front edges of the two sides and also the bottom. So you will get some glue. Let's see if I can angle this. And we'll put that, we're going to put the glue on the very top edge of the side, so not on this face, on the top edges of the sides. Flip that over. And then this front piece, you'll put some glue along the very, again, bottom edges, and then this sits on top of those side pieces, and that's it. So if you want to fast forward to the windows, I'll put the timestamp here, and now we'll show you how I decorate first. Now, if you've watched any of my tutorials, you know I like to decorate before I build. I find it much easier. So here I've got the side panel, and I've used some scrapbook paper to glue to the top for wallpaper, and I'm just using some probably, I think they're about 3mm thick or wide strips of Cricut chipboard that I've cut on the Cricut Maker, and I'm going to make some paneling. And this is super easy. I'll speed this up so you can just see all I'm doing is gluing the pieces as I go to make a nice sort of a frame. I'm not even bothered to measuring. As you see, I've let it hang over the end, and I'll cut that off when it's dry. I'm using a weight there, a piece of porcelain worktop that I had as an offcut to weigh it down while it dries so it doesn't bow and keeps it in place. And just, you can repeat that, a bit on the top, a piece on the bottom, and then I will cut the cross struts. I don't think I even measured this out with a ruler. I just literally eyeballed it, thought that'll go there, roughly counted it. Oh, I see I'm using my cutting mat beneath me to roughly work out where to position them, so that's quite handy. And again, glue those down, weigh them as they dry. And then I repeated that for another 3 pieces. And then I came in with my ruler and took a measurement of the inside of each and found a measurement that would fit all of them to create the inner panels, which I'm going to cut from craft board. And I wasn't too exact about it. As long as I got a measurement that would fit in all 4 panels. It's an attic, so I didn't want it to look too spectacularly precise. So I'm just using some craft board. I think this mat is getting a little old, so I made sure I secured it on the top and bottom with masking tape just to make sure it didn't move when it was being cut. And I did 2 rectangles for each panel, one using the inset feature, one slightly smaller than the other, so they would layer over each other and have that kind of nice beveled panel effect. Once the layered of panels have dried, I then glue them into the holes in the panelling there, the gaps, and hold them down while they dry so they dry nice and flat. The end one, again, I just let it overlap while I glued it and then set them to one side to really dry well. Once it had done that, I turned it over and I could just trim that off with a craft knife. Just make sure you look out for your fingertips. So the final thing is I masked off where the wallpaper is, and I just painted. That's using a tester pot of emulsion paint for walls in the house, and just painted that. I didn't bother to prime it, you don't need to. Making sure I got in all the nooks and crannies. I think I only did one coat as well because it kind of naturally gave that whitewashed look, which was perfect for this attic. So I put that one side to dry overnight, so it was nice and dry, and the next morning I could glue it onto the base. Now you can see I've already covered the floor with our flooring, one of our flooring SVGs, the plank effect flooring, and I've set that back from the front. Already measured it that where the side wall ends and obviously the front wall with the windows is, you don't want your flooring going beyond that. So you can see now I'm just gluing the side wall onto the floor, on from the top, not from the side, so it sits on the floor level with the back, and you need to keep it perpendicular. So I just use some 1, 2, 3 blocks, some pieces of worktop cut-offs that I've got that are nice and square, anything to hold that perpendicular while it dries. And I like to do mine kind of one piece at a time and make sure that it's really nice and solid in the right place before I start gluing other pieces to it. So again, I'll leave that for a good few hours so that I'm happy that it's secure, and we'll come back and do the rest. So now I've got the back wall, and I'm going to cover this in some actual full-scale wallpaper sample that I've had it for years and I really liked it, and suddenly I thought this will go well in this loft. It looks like a kind of rough plaster with a really lovely verdigris effect on it. So I'm simply covering all of the back wall in glue. I'm going to flip it over and just press it down. I'll trim the edges off, and then I've got my nice big heavy granite block that I'll put it under while it dries so it doesn't bow and it comes out nice and flat. So once that's dry, we can just trim the edges off carefully. At this point, I'm wishing I had way more of this paper, like I could do a wall in my actual house, but I'm just dry fitting it here to check that it's all good. And we're going to put glue along the bottom edge and the side edge where the side wall currently is. So make sure that you put it on the right side edge, or the left side edge as we're looking at the screen, the correct side edge. And we're going to put it on the bottom and match it up to the side. So again, this piece sits on the bottom and joins up to the side. I'm just securing it with some masking tape to hold it in place. And then if there's any bowing or some gaps where it's pulling away, I will use my worktop offcut weights and my 1, 2, 3 blocks to weigh it down, straighten it up, hold it in place while that piece dries. And then the only thing we need to do is put the second side wall on. If you are joining two modules together, make sure their respective side walls match so that when you glue them together, you can walk from one room through to the other. I always build each module separately and then glue them together at the end, rather than try and glue them all together in one piece. You can also see here a sneak peek of the new stairs, SVG and DXF files. The stairwell floor there in the hallway doesn't come with the roof bundle, it comes with the stair bundle. So you'll get the stairwell for both the standard width and the narrow width floors, the full flight of stairs and the banister and railings too. So we're hoping to release that straight after this roof file. Okay, so when you open the SVG for the arched French windows, this is just for one window, so and I would suggest you cut and build one at a time. You won't see this bit here because that's the finished version that I've made to show you. You'll have these pieces, and the bits that are pale blue are to represent acetate or plexiglass. I've done this because otherwise when I'm building with something see-through you can't see it, so I thought this would be a good enough representation of a piece of clear plastic. And so let's just talk you through the bits first of all. This larger one has the label doorstop on it. We'll go into that in a second. Then you've got a thin layer of trim, two that are exactly the same to create the frame, and then one that's slightly kind of inset or outset, depending on which way you're looking at it, to give you I don't know if you can see that, get the lighting right, there we are, just an effect of a moulding. Now this is because I'm doing this in craftboard, Cricut craftboard on the Cricut. If you were using a laser cutter or a different machine, you might not need to cut so many layers, but I like to build them up in craftboard. Also, depending on whether you're going to hinge your French doors or not, you might want to kind of sandwich the hinge in between two layers. So that's another reason sometimes why it's good to have layers. You could hide a hinge in there. Some people use ribbon or tiny metal hinges you can get. So that's another reason why you might want to use several layers. And so it ends up, I'll just take the two doors out, that these pieces kind of all glue together to create the frame. The doorstop I've put at the back here. Now, if you've done any of my other doors, you'll know how this works. The doorstop means it gives you something for the doors to stop against, as the name would suggest. So if you want your doors to open outwards, the doorstop goes behind the door so they can close onto it. If you want your doors to open inwards, the doors go behind the doorstop so that they go inwards, but they have something to close onto so they don't fall open like that. So that's the only thing. I'll show you how I build it, but that's the only thing you really need to think about before you build, is whether you want your doors to open and shut or not, and whether you want them to open in or out. Because as you're building this frame, if you wanted to secure a hinge in any of these layers, you need to know where to put it, both in the frame and the door. Now, I'm going to be actually gluing mine closed. So if you're going to do that, you don't need to make so many layers either if you don't want to. It's just kind of the effect we're going for then. And I have in here just used actual OHP film, but it's because it's sandwiched, it's come out quite sturdy, so that's what I've used there. So I'm going to actually probably make mine look as if they would open inwards, so they're going to go behind the doorstop like that, and I might even glue one partially open so it looks as if it's got movement. So to decide where you're going to put your doors, but the basic thing is you have your doorstop, you have these two frames which are the same, and they all line up on the outer edge. So when you're gluing them, don't glue them up to line up on the inside edge here. It's actually this outside edge there that they line up with. And then, it's hard to hold it, the thinner one also lines up on the outside edges as well to create that stepped look. And this one, which is a little bit more fiddly to glue down, goes at the very top and again lines up with the outside edges. So that's all you need to do, glue those in layers. I always like to do it in pairs and press them as I go for that one, and then you'll end up with that. For the doors, I've done 2 layers, say for the outside of the frame, then I had the glass, and then I did 2 layers for the inside. So I would glue mine like this. I would glue a pair of, say, a left hand side, and these are completely reversible, but we'll just call them left hand, right hand opening, and I'd glue another pair like that. Then I'd glue another left pair and another right pair. So technically we've got an inside pair and an outside pair, and these very thin bits are to hold the glass or acetate or plexiglass. So you would get your, so this is the inside pair, it's going inside the room. We would then glue the glass frame onto that one. And you can see there, it's just, and you want to make sure again it lines up with the outside. Don't get it to bow in at all. You want it to line up with the outside, because then when you get your piece of OHP, transparency or whatever, that fits into that glass frame. It's hard to do it and hold it at the same time. Fits in there, and then our outside two pieces, which we've glued together, I could do with an assistant really. That goes on the top, and then we have a nice sandwich with glazing in the middle. And so we do exactly the same for the right hand side. We have the inside frame, the glass frame, the actual glazing, and the outside frame. So it seems like quite a lot of pieces, but if you only do one set of doors at a time, you've got that, which is that. And then, as I said before, you just need to decide whether you want them inside or outside, and before you start gluing, whether you want them to open or not. And then we have the arched front facing piece itself, and you'll notice that there are also these triangles in the SVG, the main SVG, and they're isosceles triangles, which means they have a right angle and a hypotenuse, and it's the right angle that you want to go upwards into the air. So the longest side is what gets glued into the, or onto the front sheet, and it's the right angle that's up in the air, and you glue them on the inside here. So what I did was I'd glue them into pairs first, and once they were set, I then put glue on this inner kind of area and put that in and slide it up to that angled corner up there, and it will naturally locate there. Now it doesn't come all the way down to the bottom, and that's fine, because once this tilts up you start to run out of space. You don't want anything overhanging there. So we'll glue one in there on the right, we'll glue another pair in there onto the left, and then again use your 1, 2, 3 blocks to make sure that they're perpendicular as they dry. So you end up with this, and then we can take our frame, and that actually fits inside as well. You'll see it just locates on top of those kind of the triangles, looking like ramps really, there and in there. I can't do it holding it up, but it fits inside, not kind of outside. And then you would also match this angle here, this corner, with that corner when you're gluing them, and that one the same. And then you see they naturally just taper in at the bottom, so that when that's at the angle it is for the mansard roof, this then becomes perpendicular. So if you did want your doors to open out from there, they could. You just need to be careful if you're going to put a railing on the front of your balcony, that these might hit the railings. So I think typically people have them opening inwards. If it was a rainy day, or the rain wouldn't come in so much, you wouldn't get the door wet anyway. like that. So I'm going to angle mine in, you can angle yours out, glue them fixed in position, whatever. So that's the next thing to do for me. I'll glue my triangles on, I'll make up the second window and glue that on, and then we'll look at the little roofs. So I did stop then and paint the inside of the front wall because it would be awkward to do it afterwards. I could also put the baseboards on, or skirting boards, and I haven't yet done that in the rest of the room, but I do want to crack on with this tutorial. The next thing to do is the roof, and you'll have got these shapes in there. There's 2 shapes per window. It's nearly a rectangle, but it's got a curved edge as well. The curved edge goes on the wall, the straight edge is off the wall, and I kind of got a good result. I glued them together, 2 layers, with the front edge just, can you see they're slightly recessed back, and then you can bend it, just mould it slightly, and the 2 layers holds that curve, which makes it easier to glue, and that created a nice effect on the leading edge then. Just a little bit of a detail. And if you find that you can't quite cover a gap, although that does cover, you can use a strip of craft board, a long rectangle, and then if you imagine you'd crease it along the middle like that and bend it and create some faux lead flashing to cover up a joint. That always works really well on corner joints, and any, like around the chimney in the witch's cottage we did that. So that would go on there like that. I don't know if I can lift it off. Hold it, lift it off, and then you'll want to, I'll put that to one side, kind of glue it in 2 places at once. You want to glue it on this edge in here and at the back. That's a little bit tricky, so dry fit it, mould it and press it and make sure it's got a really good shape, and then the craft board will hold the shape then whilst you're fixing it in place and the glue takes. So I've just finished that, and I'll tell you the order that I did it. I put some glue on the inside there, just on that edge, but on the top, and I laid that bit down first and pressed it down. So that's the curved edge, and I did that, and I kind of pressed that in position and held it while the back piece actually took. Then I literally only put some glue on the top of that front arch, and I bent that down and held that. So I secured the back and the front first. So then you know it's definitely going to touch at the back, and it's definitely going to touch there. Then the next thing I did was I actually reinforced with some super glue those 2 joints from the inside. Wait for those to go off. Then very slowly I bent the top around this front edge, not worrying about the back, just the front edge, and held it there, flipped it over, and I put super glue on the inside of that edge. Keep your fingers out of the way, we don't want to glue ourselves to some roof parts. Held that while it went off, and then did the same with the other curve on the inside of the front frame. Then you could gently bend and bend, and it does give it some heat from your hand, gently curve it round until you can bring both sides down to meet the top of that piece of triangle. So on the inside then I held that sort of there with my fingers and there, and then I put super glue in that joint there to hold that, and did the same on the other side. So hopefully you can see there's some shiny bits of super glue there, so be very careful. You can get all the edges to match up and have no daylight showing through. And if you do get some seepage of super glue, this is black craft board, so I haven't painted it yet. This I painted with black gesso, so you can always paint your rooftop, or like I said before, do some flashing if you wanted to, but it does actually go on. You just need to kind of pick the 2 points first and work your way slowly around at the front and then the sides, and then a line of super glue to reinforce where that back edges meet. So that's that. I have to do the other two now for the larger piece, and we can carry on and construct. You can see here I carried on, did the second and third curved roof. I then glued the front elevations of both the hallway and the main roof onto their side walls, and that's just sits right on the front, so you would just put glue down the sides and match them up. And then I did use some tape to reinforce those corner joints, and I also used the same tape, as you can see, on the curved roof. I cut a rectangle, folded it in half lengthways, and then I did cut only on the one half some kind of slits there to enable it to curve around the roof, and I glued that in place, and that seemed to work really well, and would actually look quite how it would look in real life to have the flashing there. So the next thing to do was paint it all black, and then that hid all of that tape, and paint the roof panels, which I haven't got in this picture, but I just painted them black, and they're of course the ceiling underneath, so make sure that you paint them the colour you want your ceiling. And you could hinge them, or I just left mine as lift on and put back on again, lift off and put back on. For some faux French door handles, because it's not working, I just used some copper wire, bent that into some S shapes, super glued them onto some head pins and trimmed them off. I then painted them black and stuck them onto a couple of pieces of craft board to look like a raised handle mount. I had great fun dressing the front balcony as if it was their gardening terrace. Created a cosy little bedroom in the larger part of the roof, and there's even room in there for the full height wardrobe and a dressing table. And I also managed to squeeze in a little reading nook, even though there's a full banister and stairwell in there. I really hope you enjoy making this project as much as I do. I think it's such a cute one, and it's just really fun to look through the windows, especially when the lights are on at night. It looks so cozy. As always, all our SVG files are on our website and on our Etsy store, and the links are in the description box below. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you soon.